How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in here at odds.com. The Diehard MMA podcast is streamed exclusively here on odds.com. And if you want to watch the replay, click the link below. Head on over to odds.com to check it out. So what we have next here is maybe, even though we've got a sick main event, maybe the best fight on the card. The co-main event here, lightweight fight between Tony Ferguson, the boogeyman, El Cucuy, taking on Charles Oliveira. We've got Tony, who's 26-4, Oliveira, the young gun in the division that is finally getting his shot to step up and attempt to crack into that contender circle with a ton of experience, 29-8. This kid has so many fights under his belt for this point in his career. Now, Tony, absolutely unorthodox striking. You never know what this guy is going to throw at you. Spinning stuff, teep kicks up the middle. He forces a brawl with his opponents, constant forward pressure, death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, he's this guy that has honed his elbow game specifically to slice open the skin of his opponent's face. Is just absolutely vicious type of fighter. And in my opinion, it took a double weight cut and the championship Gaethje, the best Gaethje we've ever seen, to take out Tony Ferguson and break his ridiculous win streak in the lightweight division. Charles Oliveira, sick Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We all know this guy's ground game is next level. He chains submissions attacks over and over and over, stands tall, very much improved striking over the last couple of years, a nice classic Muay Thai style. And man, this is a tough fight to call. When they opened it up, they had Tony Ferguson about -185, and it was a flood of money on Charles Oliveira. Throughout the week, that number has been creeping back towards the opener, all the action recently coming in on Tony Ferguson, and he's out there anywhere from -160 to -185 in spots. I'm going to go ahead and let you kick this one off, Matt. What are you feeling on this fight?
Look, as much as I love Tony Ferguson, I am all over the Bronx here. I already have two bets on Charles Oliveira, one at +155, one at +160. I really think it's his time right now. I mean, guys just go through their time or their development where they hit a certain peak, and he is on it right now, and I love the activity by the Bronx. One of the greatest things as we've seen is when guys really go on runs and look their absolute peak, perfect, finest form they could be in. Usually it's because they're really active. And he had 7 fights, Oliveira, between June of 2018 and March of 2020. So 18 months, 7 fights. That's about a fight every 2.5 months. That's a really good pace. I love the shoot box training and what it's done to his Muay Thai striking. And at the end of the day, Justin Gaethje didn't just beat Tony Ferguson. He took his soul. I mean, he beat the soul out of that man. Oh, my goodness. Sometimes those type of knockouts you never return from. Think about Renan Barão. Renan Barão was the best fighter on the planet. He was on this 30-fight win streak, the bantamweight champion. He's running through the division. And then he got knocked out by TJ Dillashaw, and he was never, ever the same again. And sometimes it happens in MMA where we see guys get knocked out viciously, and they are just never, ever the same again. And at 36 years old, Tony Ferguson didn't just get the soul beat out of him in his last fight here in May. He's been in a lot of wars. This isn't a guy who's been this dominating guy that won those 12 in a row. Kevin Lee was winning the fight before Ferguson put him in a triangle choke. Lando Venata was landing big shots and had Tony Ferguson in trouble. RDA was a war. Even though Ferguson was on the right side of that war, it was a war. He's never in easy fights. He's 36 years old. It seems like it's getting away from him for a little bit. Look, I heard he overtrains already. Everyone I know said the guy always overtrains for cards. And between all that overtraining and the years of wars, I'm just not sure what he has left. I think Charles Oliveira has been the most avoided lightweight on the roster the last 6 months. Nobody wants to fight this guy right now because of how hot he is and how dangerous he is. Tony's going to be a little bit naturally bigger. He's probably actually the more powerful guy, but I think it's Oliveira's time, and I just can't help but feeling he's going to get it done Saturday night.
All right. So, in addition to you, Matt, somebody who I highly respect in the MMA world is on Charlie O this week in a big way. And man, the tape tells me another story. I'm on Tony Ferguson's side here in this one, and I'm really pissed off that I missed out on the spike that got Tony down to about minus 125 because I would have hammered Tony at a pick'em line here in this spot. One thing that I really like to do is fade fighters who take a step up in competition. I totally get what you're saying with Tony taking the beating from Justin, and I totally understand having your soul taken. I don't know that I agree with that's what happened to Tony in that particular fight. He didn't protest the stoppage. He knew that he was beat, but he also didn't get flatlined, and that's where generally we see the guys who I feel like just never look the same again is when they take that one big shot where they're staring up at the lights, they take 5 minutes to wake up. I feel like that's more when we see it. Tony has taken, yes, he's taken a lot of damage over the course of his career, but he never had that switch flipped off. He's never quite gone out that hard before. So I think he's still in this thing. I think he's still got it. And let's look at some of the names on Tony's run here. Rafael Dos Anjos, Kevin Lee, Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone. I mean, yeah, maybe an older Pettis, an older Cerrone, but still guys that were vying at the top of the division. Over on Charles Oliveira's side of things, we've got David Tamer, a guy who doesn't belong in the UFC. Jim Miller, a first round or bust submission artist who lost the submission war. Nick Lentz, a guy who we haven't heard from and is probably going to be retired here. Jared Gordon, my number one fade in the UFC when it comes to chin issues. And I made so much on Oliveira by knockout that night because I knew he was going to land a big shot on chinny Jared Gordon. And then Kevin Lee, who is a fighter that I massively respect and I think could have world champion potential, but he makes horrible choices. I had the Kevin Lee fight 1-1 going into round 3, and when he went for that takedown, it was just a classic Kevin Lee oops moment. I think he was doing everything right up until that point. And Charles Oliveira is a guy that showed me signs of breaking. I know he hasn't done it in a long time because he's been on this nasty streak of finishes, first and second round finishes, but he quits. We've seen him quit before against Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, Paul Felder. He just shuts down. He's a good hammer and a bad nail. Tony is the ultimate hammer. This guy never stops coming forward. And I know what you're saying with Charles Oliveira having underrated striking. His Muay Thai is very improved. It's a whole lot better. But I don't think he has anything that's going to get the respect of Tony Ferguson. And when Tony comes at him in round 2, when his blood is dripping down his face and he's still smiling at Charles Oliveira and walking him down and landing elbows, I think Oliveira will cave. I think Oliveira will break. And I think this has got Tony round 3 or Tony by decision, in my opinion, written all over it.
I mean, you talk about the Kevin Lee fight, which I think was close going into round 3. I agree with. But Kevin was beating Tony. This is classic Kevin Lee in every fight. Yeah, he gets out to an early lead and fades horribly. He was beating Tony Ferguson pretty handily.
He's the worst nail in the division.
Yeah, and then he got caught in a triangle. So at the end of the day, Kevin Lee, I think they both were in the same situation. Kevin Lee faded. And I do agree that he quit against Pettis in a fight that he was having a lot of success in against Pettis. And then that was the point where he said, I'm too big to cut down to 145. This has to end. I'm going to go back to 55, and I'm going to start training my ass off on my stand-up and shoot box. And you're right. It's hard to gauge where he is according to who he's fought on the way back. Look, Nick Lentz is a tough guy, at least. It was worth test. Jared Gordon, again, a tough guy. At least it was, worth testing. But I also feel like Tony's got, while there's a lot of names on his list, a lot of those names happened at the perfect time. An old Cowboy Cerrone, an old Anthony Pettis. Kevin Lee was beating him. It was an aging RDA after RDA had already lost the title. Maybe his most impressive performance is when he beat Edson Barbosa back at 215 when Barbosa was really, on top of his game. But besides that, I mean, it was Gleason Tebows and the Abel Churrillos of the world. And I think both of these guys don't necessarily, I think resumes equal is what I'm trying to say. Because when you look at it, I mean,
Okay.
Oliveira's fought Max Holloway, and he's been in there with some legit guys. Granted, he lost to him. He's been in there with some legit guys too. So they both been in there with some legit guys. I think if they both fighters were 100% right, a peak Tony Ferguson against the peak Oliveira, then you're right. Tony Ferguson wins. But Tony Ferguson's had to deal with torn ACLs, massive injuries, longer layoffs, too many wars, overtraining, age isn't on his side. I think if you're right, and Tony Ferguson is close to 100% off injuries and off recovery from the beating from Gaethje, then you're probably going to end up on the right side of this one. But you got to lay a little bit to get there now.
Yeah.
But if you're not right and he's not quite 100% and he slowed down a little bit and Father Time's catching up with him a bit, then maybe this Oliveira gets him Saturday night.
It's true. All right. And I love the dissension. I love being on opposite sides on this one and seeing both sides of the coin. This is your fight of the night, folks. Like either way you dice it, nobody else on this card is getting awarded that bonus for fight of the night. This one's going to be absolutely sick. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, what I'm going to do is sit tight. Those 383 live viewers, if you're on my side and you like you some Tony Ferguson here, sit tight because right now the market is coming in on Charles Oliveira. So if I can get this line back down to around that minus 150 spot, that's my sweet spot. That's where I really want to be. I'll take Tony Ferguson at minus 160. I'll take Tony Ferguson at minus 170, but I want to get the best price I possibly can for this one. Next up,
if Tony looks 100% at weigh-ins, if he looks ripped and 100%, if he looks great at the press conferences, if he seems sharp and he looks ripped at the weigh-ins and at the open workouts, it looks like his knees are good and he's moving well, what does this line close at? Tony 180?
I would say more like, honestly, if he looks that good, I would say this thing probably closes around 200.
Wow. So if you like Tony then and you expect that he's in fit, then maybe you want to get it now.
The only reason I'm waiting is because I've got my handy-dandy best fight odds up, and I can see where the money's kind of coming in across the market on MMA matches. And so far, the money is coming in on Charles Oliveira. So I'm hoping it drives that line down for me. But if I see it poke the other direction, yeah, I'm going to jump on Tony.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where this one's going to land. Because I know some sharp people on both sides, and I'm going to be interested to see where it goes. Because I think that there's equal chances that it closes Ferguson minus 200 as Ferguson minus 120.
That's true. That's true. There's a lot of people who have pegged Charles Oliveira as the next big thing at 155. I know a lot of them. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of support, both sharp and public, for Charles Oliveira in this spot. And then there's going to be a lot of people like myself and then a lot of public who know Tony Ferguson and the run he's been on and Tony versus Khabib. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can get to the Tony side, and you're going, who's this Brazilian kid? I haven't seen him. I don't know what he's about. You'll bet with the favorite that you're recognizing. And then there's a lot of sharp people that kind of probably think the same way I do, where you don't just jump off ship because he lost to the number one contender in the division. And there's some value on him here, a kind of a buy low spot for Tony Ferguson. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of two-sided action on this one. This line could ping pong all week.
And I think it's the favored fight by everyone. Everyone who loves MMA, this is the fight they're targeting rather than the main event. This is the main event of the MMA community. There might not be a shiny belt on the line, but this is our main event. This is our industry main event.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the people's main event. You nailed it. All right. So we have got 388 live viewers. We were so close to that 400 live viewing mark. Thank you all for joining us. We're about to get into the main event of UFC 256. I'm joined by Matt Holt, president of US Integrity, this evening, and this is odds.com, folks. Make sure you smash that like button for me. That helps out a ton, so please hit that like button for us and share the video out there, get the word out. Once again, I want to remind everybody, the replay for this episode is going to be exclusively on odds.com, so don't be fishing through YouTube. You're not going to find it there. Go to odds.com. There's a nice little handy-dandy UFC tab, and you'll find all the shows that I do for odds right there.